Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Along with Jason Lloyd and Tyvis Powell, I'm Adam the Bull. We got Mikey McNuggets, we got Director Steve, we got Anthony, all behind the glass. And we got a lot to get to today, fellas. Coming up in overtime, 30-something of you entered a submission to try to get one of the two spots into the UCSS Fantasy Football League. Well, in overtime, we are going to go through all the submissions anonymously. Only Mike knows who they are, and he's not voting. We will anonymously hear what you sent us, and then we will pick the two winners. That coming up on overtime. But until now, between now and then, we've got a lot to get to. Deshaun Watson has arm soreness. Denzel Ward officially has a concussion. And the Guardians played like crap in New York. And overall, outside of that crazy Tuesday night extra inning win, have been playing bad baseball here for almost a week. That's all coming up, fellas. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, you good?
Yeah, I got my meeting today.
Tyvis, how do you not have a mic on? What happened to you?
He got up to go to the bathroom.
Oh, that's right.
It's a novice mistake. It's a novice mistake.
Come
you
on.
know what Jason did? This is Jason's fault.
Yeah.
Jason was notorious, and I used to laugh at him for every time he did it.
I've done it twice in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is the second time I did
So
this.
you got what? What were you saying?
I got my Big Ten tailgate meeting today. So
tell the folks where you're going to be, because Tyvis, of course, is on the Big Ten Network.
Yes.
And he goes and does the pregame show.
Yeah, we'll do the tailgate show. Next Saturday, we'll be in Purdue. Then I'll go to Penn State. Then I'm going to the Wolverines. Then I'll be in Washington. Then I'll be in Indiana. That's the first month.
Nice.
Today, we're going to kind of set what we're going to do, how we're going to do the show, some ideas and things like that. So I'll know my homework and have to do some research and stuff like that for Purdue. And, yeah, it'll be a good time.
Last year, did fans give you a hard time?
No.
In certain places, like in Michigan? Or
No. So, you know what? The funny thing about that is I went there, and they were fine. It was like I even got to meet Denard Robinson. He was a cool guy.
Oh, wow.
Cool guy.
Former players.
Well, you know,
that's not good. No, I just mean like
know.
the general fans. They busting your chops.
No, because it's
Ohio State fans wear.
So the
players.
thing about it, the thing about when I go there, they can't say nothing to me, and I can't really say nothing to them because I didn't lose.
That's true.
Yeah.
But they'll be like, well, we're winning. Well, that has nothing to do with me.
Right.
So,
All right, that's fair. Jason, anything exciting happening in your life right now?
Well, I told these guys yesterday. I walked in, and the dishwasher broke. On top of the tree falling on the house, and my son getting an accident.
When it rains, it pours, man.
Yeah. So the dishwasher was broke.
Yeah.
And I called my Mike. You know,
Mike. Yeah.
Mike came over, looked at it for a few minutes. He's like, I don't know. You got to call an appliance guy.
Yeah.
I fixed it. Me.
Look at you.
I fixed it. I tore the thing apart and fixed it. I'm like, yeah, look at that. I fixed it.
Who knew?
And then it broke again yesterday.
You didn't really fix it.
So then I tore it apart again yesterday, got it working again.
When a dishwasher breaks, I feel like you just got to replace it.
Nothing will send your life into a tilt.
Oh, my God.
Like a dishwasher or the washing machine breaking.
Now, there's plenty of people that don't have dishwashers.
I can't imagine.
I'm about to say, why can't y'all go back to hand washing?
You do a lot of hand washing anyway. It sucks.
That's true. That is true.
Dishwashers generally suck. They really don't work.
I agree with that statement.
And they're very expensive.
Yeah.
It was funny because I had someone who works in the NBA I've known for a long time called me while I had it torn apart.
Yeah.
And he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to fix the dishwasher. He goes, you?
Yeah.
Are trying to fix the dishwasher? And he goes, don't you have a wife? That's a dishwasher.
Oh, jeez.
It's like,
could you be more of a success? Holy moly.
He was joking, I think.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
But it was,
I'm sure his wife is satisfied with his wife. He probably thinks she is, and she's probably not. Meanwhile, I think we need to spend at least a minute or two discussing the fact that the two teams I'm coaching here in fall ball are a combined 7-3 right now.
Oh, really? Look at you.
7-3.
working on that extension.
And this Sunday.
Well, we said the last time we said that.
Yeah.
It went. Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Now this is big. This Sunday, my majors team, my major league team, which is kids who just started the 6th and 7th grade. Mm-hmm. We play at 9 a.m. And then my 4th and 5th grade team plays at 11 a.m. Both of my teams will clinch division titles if we win on Sunday.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's an evaluation period for you.
This is it, and that means the last regular season game I could give some other kids a chance to pitch because the games won't matter. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, it's fall
clinch
ball
both.
bowl. The games aren't supposed to matter to begin
They
with.
matter. Everybody's taking this very
The
seriously.
whole reason for fall ball is to put kids in different spots and
Yes.
give them opportunities. They
But
don't
let me
get.
tell you something.
Is that a true?
Let me tell you something, Jason. The competition,
Except when you're coaching for your job like this.
the competition in fall ball is better than in Little League because we have a combination of Little League players and travel players.
yeah.
We even have, there's some kid that played against us last week who plays T3, which
Yeah.
is even
Yeah,
another
yeah.
level,
Yeah.
So it's really good competition, much better than Little League.
I don't think we're going
So
to be
it's
able
exciting.
to. I don't think we're going to be able to do fall ball because the games are during the week. I thought they were on the weekends.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do. Next year, if we may add an upper division, we can get your son in there.
What do you mean we, as in you, your son?
His son.
Or are you talking about you running a league?
The family.
Yeah, the family.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Our
hate when
fall
people
ball
do that. I
games
shouldn't
are
have done that.
our fall ball games are on Sundays.
That's see.
We only time we play during the week is
During
if
the
there's
like going into the football season?
yeah, it's tricky, but my games.
But
are
it's
all
in the morning though.
9 and 11.
Oh,
so
okay. You won't miss.
we did Saturday mornings last year, and it was great. It was perfect.
Well-
but the football kids can't play.
Right, they can't play. So I got a lot of football kids.
Yeah, I talked to AJ this morning. I'm like, I think the games are during the week. He goes, well, I'm
Right.
out. I'm not doing it with
Yeah.
football.
We
and
played during the week this week
homework.
because we got rained out last Sunday.
Yeah.
So we had makeup games Monday and Tuesday night. We won them both.
fall.
Go ahead, Mike.
We got a
That's my
ton of things I
story.
want to get to before two guests. And we're going to dive into the Deshaun Watson and the arm soreness in a sec. But real quick, this morning, the Browns did make a trade. They traded Cade York to the Commanders for a 7th-round pick, officially ending Jay's dream of some sort of Cade York redemption arc with the Browns.
Yeah.
Bull, I know it wasn't the trade that we have speculated and talked about at length for the Browns, but real quick, give me 30 seconds on Cade York being traded to the Commanders. Andrew Berry finding value in getting a pick for somebody that seemed like there was nothing left.
I don't know that they definitely get a pick. It's probably only if he is their starting kicker, maybe. But you were going to cut him anyway. There was no way the only way he was making the team is if Hopkins got hurt. So you took a guy who had zero value and got minuscule value in return, but potentially you never know. There's 7th-round picks every once in a while that turn into players that contribute.
Well,
so.
I look at it as if it becomes a pick, it's fodder to move up from the
Right,
fourth
whatever.
to the
It's a
third.
little bit of a bonus.
You create something out of nothing.
Literally nothing, because you
Yeah.
knew he was getting cut.
Yeah.
Again, unless Hopkins got hurt, he
Right.
was going to get cut.
Wait,
So-
isn't he? Is he kicking Hopkins? I thought he's been out. Wasn't he hurt?
Is he hurt?
I haven't heard anything about that.
I thought he wasn't kicking. That's why I thought they hadn't got Kade York. So
Nah.
so he just not been playing. They just was giving Kade York the preseason.
Yes,
and shit.
so.
Oh, well,
maybe we
good.
forgot that he was hurt.
Good,
Is
good
that
by
possible?
them.
He has a history of injuries, but I don't think he's hurt
That's
now.
true. That's true.
If that's the case, good about him. I think
All right, anybody else with a thought on that?
They did him a service, got him in there, showed that he looks like he's kicking well. He needs
Yeah.
to stop kicking the ball out of the back of the end zone, though, on them kickoffs if they want to see guys cover.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I thought he did well, and you got a
wish him-
7th-round pick. I wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish him well. I hope he has a productive NFL career.
Unlike
Really.
Baker Mayfield, I'll be rooting for Cade York.
Wow.
All right, we'll get to coming up in just a little bit. We're going to get to Denzel Ward's latest concussion. Deshaun Watson in about 30 seconds. First, Mike.
Yeah, we got to get a FanDuel read out the way, then we'll dive into the Deshaun news. You've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot, America's undisputed number one sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you guys today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to download America's number one sportsbook. So, Bull, yesterday during practice, Deshaun threw a couple passes and then got held back from the rest of practice. Kevin Stefanski described it as general arm soreness. That was essentially all he gave. He said he's not too concerned about it. Deshaun did throw earlier in the practice, then was going through the motions and throwing his towel, taking those mental reps later in practice. Is this cause for concern, or is this no big deal that Deshaun sat out the second half of practice essentially with, as Kevin Stefanski described it, general arm soreness?
I mean, this seems like a pretty big deal for me, but I'd really like to hear from Tyvis on this first because he's the former player.
Yeah.
Because this sounds pretty alarming to me.
Yeah, you would think that for a guy that's, spent he had some reps in OTAs and then he spent camp throwing. And we've seen him throw from short, we've seen him throw medium, we've seen him throw deep balls. And it's alarming that now all of a sudden his arm is sore. I didn't feel like they made him pick up his workload or anything like that because he got cleared 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So unless his workload has just quadrupled, it's kind of alarming that he got his arm all of a sudden is now sore when he's been throwing this entire time.
Let me ask you this: is every quarterback in theory sore now because they've been throwing for a few weeks and it's just like a natural part of this time of year?
I mean,
or is there something more to it here?
Well, I mean, you want to rest the arm
Yeah.
at some point, and I'm hoping that that's what it is, that they just wanted to rest his arm for the day. But if it's literally soreness,
Yeah.
like
that
what-
could mean an issue.
yeah, like why is that the case? Like you've literally, it's not like you've been doing nothing and now they've threw a whole bunch of reps at you.
Right.
You've been taking reps, so your arm should be kind of used to it. That's why to me it's like, but I don't think it will it affect him going into week one. No, I don't.
Sure?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I wouldn't look at it that bad because if it's just soreness now, he should be good in a couple of days. Ice it, get treated, all of those things. He should be fine for week one. Now, I will say my concern will be after that game. How will he feel after that game?
Yeah,
Because he's going to take hits and all kind of stuff. So,
And he's not going to, I assume now he won't play in the third preseason game. I know they haven't.
He's making
confirmed
sure of it.
He doesn't want to play.
He didn't want to play.
I don't understand.
I don't get it.
What is happening?
This whole thing is weird. The whole thing is weird. The whole vibe around this entire camp has been very strange. And I haven't been out there a ton, obviously, but I've checked it with a couple, and it's just weird. It's the only best word to describe it. It doesn't make sense. And I was talking to Zach Jackson on the drive-in, obviously covering the Browns for us, and I didn't realize this until he laid it out like this. Deshaun hasn't really been throwing. Zach said Tuesday's practice was like a nothing practice. Deshaun threw, but it was a little bit. He hadn't really thrown since last Thursday. So why is his shoulder sore? Or why is his arm? I shouldn't say shoulder. Why is his arm sore? He hadn't thrown the ball. They went through practice Thursday.
Yeah.
They had a bit of a nothing practice Tuesday. And Zach said he looked good Wednesday, like when he threw it at the start. Zach said, I actually thought he made some good throws.
maybe
and then he shut it down.
Maybe he went to the weight room and lifted some heavy stuff.
But and the talk when I was at the Greenbrier, and I only say Greenbrier for the timing of it. Way back then, there was people around in sort of Deshaun's camp who were making it sound like he wasn't going to play in the preseason. And then Kevin comes out and says he's going to play.
This is the second time they did this.
And then Deshaun comes out and says, well, it's news to me. And now Kevin sort of backtracks and says, well, we'll reassess, as we get closer to the game. And then Deshaun just shuts it down.
Yeah.
It's weird.
There's
the whole
a lot of
thing is weird.
My mind is going through a lot of different things here. One part of me says, and maybe I'm just being hopeful because I want him to be healthy. Maybe this general soreness is bullshit, and they're just saying it because they weren't on the same page about him playing, and Deshaun doesn't want to play, as you're alluding to.
That's what
and
it
that
sounds
this
to
is
me
Kevin
like.
Stefanski's way of not having to backtrack, and it's just say, hey, he's got soreness, we can't play.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
we all watched the first couple of preseason games.
Right.
How did the left side look? Do you think that Deshaun's like, we ain't got no left tackle. I ain't going out there.
He's going to have to go out there against
That's
Dallas.
pretty lame if that's the case.
I'm about to go out there and get killed if we ain't got no left tackle.
It's the preseason. You can't have a couple of quick passes? I mean, let's go.
I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, I'm playing what if.
Yeah, right, no.
What if?
I get it.
What if he's like, I don't really trust that line right now, so I ain't,
Is he going to trust him against Dallas? Because it may
have no choice.
be the
he
same
ain't have
line.
a choice. But maybe he thinking, I got to at least I'll make it to Dallas.
Yeah. It's just weird.
It is.
The whole thing.
It is.
The whole vibe around this team, right? And that doesn't mean the season's going to unravel or anything. I'm just telling you, it's very strange. It's been.
Can you
very
elaborate
strange.
more on that?
No, I'm just like the line's a mess. This thing with Deshaun is weird.
Yeah.
It's just like the defenses look great, the offenses look terrible.
And listen, this is Kevin Stefanski's philosophy. It may work, it may not work. I mean, every year's a new year. But he's making it seem as if, like I always say, there's no value for us when it comes to the preseason. We don't really learn anything. But the preseason has value to the players, right?
100%.
Preseason has value to the coaches.
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski doesn't seem to think it matters at all because all the players that matter the most are doing nothing in the preseason.
He's looking at it from a standpoint that, yes, to that point, he's like, I kind of got my guy. I think Kevin and a lot of that organization is like, we know who we got. Like, we don't really need to see them because we know what they're going to do once the season come around. They look like, to me, the Browns take the approach of, I want to get the young guys that we're going to depend on as much reps as possible, and I want to get guys an opportunity to earn a way to either make this team or make a team. So, to me, when I watch the preseason for the Browns, for at least these 2 games that we've seen, it's been predicated on, you've seen Mike Hall, you've seen Zach Zinter, you've seen guys, those are the guys that we're going to kind of depend on at some point during the season. But I also want other guys, Tyler Huntley, DTR, Jamari Thrash, or maybe Miles Harden. I want these guys to get some tape out there just in case if we don't keep them, they can make it in the NFL at some point. And I kind of respect that too. But at the end of the day, you still got to do what's best to get your team ready. I'm trying to think. See, last year's opener against Cincinnati was kind of a wash because it rained.
The weather, yep.
Who did they play week 2?
They lost to Pittsburgh on Monday Night Football.
And that one was terrible because
right.
Chubb went down.
Yeah.
But I feel like the offense. It did. So I don't know if
wasn't that the Steelers had like 0 offensive yards in the fourth quarter and won the game?
There was the strip sack, touchdown.
Right.
Jed got burned by, I figure it was Hayward or Watt, but Deshaun didn't play well, but the line and the rest of the team also did not.
See, so it's like, it feels like
and
to
he
me
played really good in week 3.
They trying to figure out what the right recipe is because you want to come out and you want to be week 1. It's a big game. You want to make sure that your team is ready to go.
But to that point, guys, how could we be? And he may go out there and play a great game. You never know.
Talking about
Deshaun
against Dallas?
Yeah.
Okay.
But how would we possibly think he's ready to go for week 1? He hasn't been on the field in a game since the middle of last year. He's not played a single snap in preseason and probably won't. Jason said he hasn't thrown the ball in a week. Report.
I've been on the show.
That's what Zach's reporting.
When I was talking to Zach on the drive in, he said he went through Thursday.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday was a nothing practice. Like, it was a practice that he threw, but it was nothing intense. And then the start of Wednesday, he shut it down.
So how would we expect and again, he's coming off 3 straight seasons where he's either not played or missed a lot of time and not played particularly great when he has played. So how could you be I have no confidence that he's going to play well or be ready to play in this week 1 game.
We have no indication that he's ready, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Of course, I'm just saying. You can't be confident in it.
Well, all I know is the way that they've been going about this whole thing.
Yeah.
They better make sure that they're successful because if they don't, it's so much ammunition to point back on.
Yeah.
So to me, they got to make sure that they know what they're doing on this. And at this point, I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm going to sit back and trust that they know more. They see things more than we do. So they got more information than we do.
Absolutely.
So these guys get paid a lot of money to handle these teams. So I'm going to just trust that they earning their money.
But you agree this is weird.
It is. To go through a whole preseason and not play.
Coming off what he's coming off.
Yeah, like that. Hasn't Joe Burrow went out there and played?
Yeah.
And by the way, in what world does arthroscopic knee surgery require 9 months of recovery?
Nah, it had to be some type of setback on that.
This is wild.
Because people get that and be like out for like maybe a week or two. And then like,
and I think it was interesting that Conklin was on the field yesterday, and I wonder if he's going to be the left tackle to start the season if he's ready. I don't know if he's ready or not.
I don't know if he was in. Did he do drills? He wasn't in pads.
He did individual work on the field. Yeah. It's the first time he was seen on the field in Tyvis. You could read into this whatever you want. Seriously, probably looking way too far into this. The videos you saw, he was taking side steps and slides, both left and right.
Right.
Which may indicate it could be absolutely nothing. It could mean nothing. But the fact he was doing slides both ways.
Well, that puts him ahead of Jed.
Maybe they put him at left tackle, though. Maybe it's an attempt to get him to work on that left slide.
I figured that.
He hasn't played left tackle at all since he's been on the Browns.
I figured that would be the thing. For him.
But you got it.
You got it. You knew that you wasn't going to touch DeJuan, and you knew Jed would be the guy. So the best thing would have been to swing him so he could do both sides. Right. Plus, on top of that, it'll make him more valuable as well moving forward. Because now, okay, you play left tackle and right tackle. Yeah. So if it came down to a situation where Jed is balling out and DeJuan's balling out, maybe somebody would be like, "Hey, we need tackle. We got tackle issues. Can we throw a trade for him?" So it would bring him more value for sure.
That's true.
Or if you're gonna keep him around, it still holds value,
especially with all the injury proneness at that position for them and just in general. Mike, do you have that video, the Charlie Weis thing?
Yeah, Steve. I don't know if you put it in the SOT. It's 224 is a SOT.
So let me give you some background. I'm sure, I hope all of you that watch this show also watch my podcast on YouTube, The Bullpen with Adam the Bull. On yesterday's episode, I interviewed former NFL coach Charlie Weis.
Okay.
And if you can, please go to YouTube or Spotify or whatever and check out the whole interview. He really had some interesting things to say about Tom Brady because he was Tom Brady's OC when Tom Brady first started in New England.
Yeah.
So he loves Tom Brady like a son.
And he was labeled an offensive genius because of Tom Brady.
That's right.
I'm sure he does love Tom Brady.
Right.
Tom made him a lot of money at Notre Dame.
He certainly did. He certainly did. So, and he has a very interesting perspective. He hated the roast. He was very angry about it.
Really?
I asked him about it. But anyway, it's a really good interview. But this one part I found fascinating because it's something I've been debating with Earl mostly and some other people that we've moved. Some people want to move the goalposts on Deshaun Watson. The Browns gave up what they gave up and paid him what they paid him to be a superstar.
Yeah.
Not to just put up Baker Mayfield numbers.
They had that.
And not just win. It's not, and that's a lame excuse to me because the better he plays, the more games you're going to win. Mm-hmm. It's that obvious. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I asked Charlie Weis specifically about Deshaun Watson. Here's what he had to say.
Deshaun Watson came out. Andy Reid and I are very close friends. And we had a conversation that year. I liked Deshaun Watson the best, and he liked Patrick Mahomes the best. You say, well, why did I like Deshaun Watson? Well, my kid was coaching at Alabama. The one thing I can tell you in both those games, and I watched Tua and Jalen Hurts playing for Alabama. Okay, in both those games, the best player on the field was Deshaun Watson. Coming out, it was no big surprise to me that he had early success in Houston for the first bunch of years that he was there. Who in their right mind would say somebody who hasn't played much the last couple of years is ready to go? I mean, you just can't say that. Now, he might come out and be the best thing since sliced bread. And to be honest with you, Cleveland's got all the pieces in place to be a really successful team. But if he's just a good quarterback, that's not going to be good enough. He's got to be better than just a good quarterback. He can't just be better than serviceable. He has to be very good.
I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
It can't just be Baker Mayfield was serviceable to better than serviceable at times. That's fine. You could be competitive that way. I think we have a lot of fans in here right now that are saying, well, we had terrible quarterback play for the most part last year, so if we're just serviceable at quarterback, we'll win a lot of games. It doesn't work. Things don't go the same way.
I wouldn't call it terrible. Joe Flacco was not terrible.
Well, he wasn't terrible, but he still threw a lot of picks.
He did.
All right? It was below average overall for the season, the quarterback play.
I mean, you throw the ball 40 times a game.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're going to throw some picks.
It's going to happen.
But the point is, Tyvis, and you know this better than anybody as a former player, that things are like the way the Browns won last year is not sustainable.
I agree.
Right? You can't win with 5 quarterbacks. Yeah, it was cool that they did it, but if you don't get good quarterback play in this division, in this conference, you're not going to make the playoffs, most likely, and you're certainly not going to win in the playoffs if you do get there. So it can't just be, we just need him to contribute to the wins. No, he's got to be a reason why they win, for them to be as good as they want to be, to reach their peak.
Well, I mean, the defense is going to be the reason why they win. I mean, let's just throw that out there. But yes, if they want to win the Super Bowl, yes,
that's right.
Then yes,
the Chiefs had a really good defense last year.
Exactly. But
they would have won the Super Bowl without Patrick Mahomes.
When it came down to it, Patty did what Patty needed to do. So
right.
You want those same expectations out of your quarterback. And I think that they have done a good job of at least getting him some pieces. Now, those pieces do have to turn into something, and he's part of that. You know, you've seen Patty Mahomes do it with some weak receivers. You've seen Tom Brady do it with some weak receivers.
Yeah.
So the quarterback should absolutely make some of these receivers better because they all have the talent to be really good. It's up to him to get the ball to them, which I think he will do. Outside of that, game plan wise, they went and got the game plan that you want with Ken Dorsey coming in. So they've done everything. They've literally done everything to help you be what you're supposed to be. You say you need all these things to be this good quarterback. Well, they've laid that out. So there's no excuse. If it doesn't work or if the offense doesn't look good this year, it's not going to be on Kevin. It's not going to be on Ken. It's going to be on him. And he has to know that.
Yeah, 100%. Jason, final thought on this? Before we move on to Mike Hall?
It's been weird. It's been very, very weird.
Weird is a big word.
I mean,
I hope they pull it together.
It's different. It's just it's definitely different.
Mike, what do you got for us?
You know, Reed, we're going to pivot to our next Browns topic. If you guys are looking to get tickets to a Browns game this season, a Guardians game, a Cavs game, you name it, there's no better place and no easier way to buy your tickets online than with the Game Time app. Game Time's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Plus, the prices of the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
Mike, I'm planning to take Aaron to Washington at the Bengals for Monday Night Football. I think it's the third week of September. I'm planning on driving to Cincy after the show that Monday. And the other day I was like, I should buy the tickets. And I said, you know what? Yep. I'm not going to buy them now. I'm going to wait till the week of, and I'm going to get them.
On Game Time. Use the code. It'll save you some money.
Yes.
An update to a story we talked about last week. Mike Hall obviously was arrested last week in a domestic violence case. He's since practiced and played for the Browns. Well, last night, news reports came out that Mike Hall Jr.'s accuser in this case has recanted part of her story, saying that he recanted the part of the story where he allegedly held a gun to her head. But what do you make about this next phase and step in the Mike Hall arrest saga?
Well, in a lot of these cases, unfortunately, and like we always say, the only people that know exactly what happened are the people involved.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what happened. Unfortunately, in a lot of these cases where domestic violence is involved, the women will, even if it happened, which, again, we don't know what the truth is here. I tend to believe that this probably all happened, but I don't know for sure. A lot of times, women who are in bad relationships like this, dangerous relationships, I shouldn't say a lot, but it happens enough. That whether it's because Mike Hall's making money and she's scared to be without money or whatever it may be, that often they don't want to end the relationship even though it's an unhealthy relationship, and so women will sometimes recant. It's unfortunate. It's sad. They could continue to the prosecution in this case. It's hard. I think it's pretty hard to win a case like this against somebody if there's no corroborating eyewitness. But, I mean, again, I don't know. I'm just speculating here. I just think I've had a firsthand experience. And, I don't know what happened here. I know that years ago, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the air before. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. 20 years, more than 20, 30 years ago, I had a girlfriend, and the guy she had been with before me was abusive to her. She had been pushed away by her family. She had nowhere to go. So when she was dating this guy, he was hitting her, and she would stay with him. And it was horrible. But she'd stay with him because she felt like she had nowhere else to go. So the police would come. She'd recant her story, even though it was all happening. I'm not saying that this is definitely the case in this situation. I don't know. But I know that that happens a lot. I had to deal with the repercussions of what she went through. And it was heartbreaking. And you hear a lot of stories like this. So I just think the whole thing is sad. And I hope that justice is done somehow, and that if he is abusive, that he does end up in jail and she can break free. And that if he's not and she made this up, then there should be a punishment for her. But that's my thoughts on it.
It sounds like it's a troubled relationship all the way around. Channel 3 also reported yesterday that she was arrested for hitting him with a bottle by Columbus Airport police, and then he wouldn't go forward with the case, and so it was dropped. So clearly there's a lot going on in this relationship. Listen, what you do in your private is your time, but it sounds like this is a relationship that is explosive, and it's unfortunate. I don't know. You're right. This happens. I was reading about a lot about this. You can still move forward with a lot of these cases if there's enough physical evidence. I don't know if that'll be the case with this or not.
I don't think they usually do.
They get murder convictions without hearing from the victim.
True. Yeah.
So and it's fascinating some of the things that they do now, but it's really up to the prosecutor's office now what they want to do with it. If they want to move forward with it or if they have to back off. I don't know, but it's a bad situation.
Yeah. Tyvis?
I don't know nothing about nothing that happened. All I can tell you is when you go through stuff like this, if you do have a issue with your significant other, and the police is involved, you need to make sure that you got to take your emotions and put them to the side, for example, for that second, and tell the story exactly what happened. You can't I don't think you can tell a story then go back and say, "Oh, I was making that up because I was mad," and all of those things. Like, just be honest. Whatever happened, so everybody can move forward with it and people can do what they have to do. But in this situation, I got to let the legal thing play out. I don't know. I don't know, because if he did do it, then that's terrible. If he didn't do it, then that's terrible that she would do that to him. So I think Jason's got a point with this. This relationship got some issues. You guys got to work on some things. I mean, I know you guys are engaged. Y'all got to figure something out. Y'all got to figure this thing out. For the betterment of your family, the kids, everybody that's involved, y'all need to figure this thing out.
Mike?
We're going to move on to our next Browns topic. G. Bush on vacation this week. He's back next week. Just a scheduling note for you guys. G. Bush will be doing the Ultimate Brown Show on Tuesdays and Fridays during football season, not Mondays and Fridays. That show gets moved to Tuesdays, so just keep that in mind and keep it locked into your schedule. The Ultimate Brown Show with G. Bush during the regular season, every Tuesday and Friday, twice a week, coming at you on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel. Denzel Ward, guys, was officially diagnosed with his 5th concussion. Kevin Stefanski confirmed that news yesterday. Tyvis, when you were on the show last week when he was still in protocol, you mentioned that you knew 2 different players that you played with that had their 6th concussion be the cutoff number in terms of when teams asked them to go away. With Denzel at 5 now, I just got to ask it. Can the Browns truly count on Denzel this season? Or anything you get from Denzel at this point, is that just a luxury and an added bonus to this defensive secondary because he's one routine play away from potentially having his career end at just 27 years old?
First of all, I want to say that I'm truly torn on the fact that a guy that's that talented, that's been that impactful to a defense, that guy that's been such a staple to not just the Browns but all of Ohio. I mean, he's living the dream of every Cleveland kid dreamed of, and it's unfortunate that he has to deal with these things, because what scares me is how he's going to be impacted later in life. You know, you see so many different studies and all of this stuff about CTE and all of those things, and he's such a nice dude. Like, he's genuinely a really good dude, and I just really hope that this stuff don't affect him mentally and he falls off a cliff later in life. So that part scares me. But as far as this season goes, listen, he's young and he wants to play, so it's not like they're not going to let him play, you know. And I joked about the Guardian cap the last time I was on here when we talked about it, but he has to wear it. Like, it might not look cool, but you got to do everything you can to be protected, because I understand in this moment all you thinking about is, we got a Super Bowl roster. We got a chance to win it all this year, and I want to be a part of that. But you got to think bigger than that. And it's hard to do when you're in the thick of it, because I remember being in your shoes. I would have been like, I don't care if I get the 6th concussion. I'm still going back out there. I play with the concussion because I was just crazy like that. And I get that that's where you want to be. But to answer your question, I mean, you can count on him. It's just when it's the way he's getting concussions. Like, is these concussions coming from boom, smacking somebody and then getting it? Or is it, I bumped into somebody and now I got a concussion? That's when it gets scary. Like, when it's not a ton of physical things there and you still getting a concussion, that's when you're like, all right, it's time to hang this thing up. So I can't remember, how did you say he got this 5th one in practice?
This most recent one, he was jostling with Elijah Moore on a one-on-one drill. He deflected the pass essentially, and they just fell to the ground. It wasn't a hit. It wasn't a gruesome
See, that's what's scary. That's what's scary about the whole thing, because that's something that you're going to do multiple times over the course of a season. You're going to go for a ball, and you're going to lay out, try to make a play on the ball, you're going to fall to the ground, and I don't want that to be your last concussion to where you can't play. So I think that, I don't know if you can count on him for 17 games. I know that that's always been a thing with him anyways, is that he always got hurt, but if it's that delicate, I mean, it's definitely one of those things he's definitely got to sit down and take seriously, because, like I said, that 6th one come, it's going to be hard for somebody to say, we trust you to still go out there and play football, this physical game. So you got to think about the bigger picture. All I would say is, you did a good job of getting Martin Emerson ready for this season. Greg Newsome is playing for a contract after this, so he's going to be extremely motivated. And if you're not able to play this season, or if you're able to play sparingly this season, don't worry. The Cleveland Browns still are in good hands, and that's because of the work that you put in this offseason getting Martin Emerson ready. And just you being around there and still being a coach and still helping guys out, help the next generation, help the Cam Mitchells, help the Miles Hardens. You know, you can still play a big part of this. But I do think you might need to think about a little bit on them reps. You know, maybe a couple reps a game, something like that. If you feel good, go out there. But I don't want you to sustain that 6th concussion and that be the end of your career, because I still think, to me, you should. I thought you was a top 5 corner in this league, but it's like the world never really gave you that respect. And I know right now you feel like I'm there. You got the confidence. You playing with so much swag. You can defend anybody in the league. And it just sucks that this is a dark cloud that's hanging over your head. So just be smart about it. Just be smart. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Jason?
I don't know that there's a magic number. I think it's different for everybody of how many is too many. But when you have them close together, that's really bad.
It's been 3 in 34 months.
Yeah, and it's more like 2 and 3 in one season like the Tua situation. Yeah. That's when. But here's where the thing that really concerns me. How do we know it's 5?
Right.
I mean,
that's the 5 that we know of.
That's the 5 you know of. What about Nordonia? What about Ohio State? What about when he was a kid? I've had 3 really bad concussions. I never played at Ohio State.
I told you the first question I asked my two ex-teammates was, how many concussions did you have before you was done? And the first question is, how many known documented concussions?
Right.
So he said documented is 6, but it was probably more than that. So
and so for him, that's 5 in the NFL. But he had a lot of life before he ever made it to the NFL. So we keep saying.
There's no way he went 8 years, or how many years did he play at Ohio State? 3?
Yeah.
I mean, could he have played 4 years in high school and 3 years at Ohio State and never gotten a concussion? I find that unlikely.
He could, yeah.
Let's not say it's impossible. He certainly could.
Middle school.
I didn't say it was impossible. I said it's not likely.
I had one in elementary school, one in college, and one a couple years ago. Right. And that's just living everyday life.
Yes.
So, and that's the part where you hope that it's like when they take helmets from guys on the sideline. Sometimes you have to protect the player from himself. And we're getting very dangerously to that point with him where, Tyvis, you're right. It's not, he may feel fine now. It's 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Right. What's his life going to be?
We've seen so many examples of guys.
And when you're young, when you're his age, you think you're bulletproof.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was in my 20s, like jumping out of planes. Like, nothing's going to hurt me. Nothing's going to stop me until you get older in life and you start to figure this out. So I'm very concerned about Denzel just because of the 5 that we know of, but there could easily be more than that we are not even talking about.
So you guys have hit on the personal stuff for Denzel. I agree with everything you said. Let me look at it from a football perspective for the Browns. Obviously not as important as Denzel Ward's life. But from a football perspective, this is a huge deal to me. Because Denzel Ward, in my opinion, is the second most important player on their defense behind Myles Garrett. We saw what the secondary looked like when Denzel didn't play last year. It wasn't that good. Denzel is a special talent. I think he's the most underrated player on the Browns, and I don't even think it's close. He is a true cornerback 1.
Yeah.
You know? And I've said this once, I'll say it a million times. All you need to look at with Denzel Ward is how's he done against Jamar Chase. And I watch Jamar Chase play every week, and the only cornerback I've seen shut him down is Denzel Ward. And he's done it more than once. So that tells me all I need to know. I can't even remember if he's played against Justin Jefferson. Did they play both?
Yeah, they were at Minnesota. I don't know I can't remember if he played.
Yeah.
They were at Minnesota
so maybe
a couple
once.
years ago.
But he plays Jamar Chase twice a year when they're both healthy. So he's played him a number of times. That stands out the most to me. Martin Emerson's a really nice corner. Greg Newsome's a solid third corner. But Martin Emerson is an excellent cornerback too. He's not a 1. He might be at some point. Maybe he is one of the 30 best corners, but he's not as good as Denzel Ward. So you're moving everybody up a slot at that position. And when you're trying to be the best defense in the NFL, if you now, for all we know, Denzel Ward could end up playing 17 games this year for the first time ever, and he's totally fine. But it does feel like he may be one concussion away, because the fact that this one happened on a nothing play, as you said before, Tyvis, that makes me concerned that it's like every play you're worried he's going to get a concussion. How could you not be thinking about that? How could he not be thinking about that? And if they do lose him for a significant amount of time, I think it's a huge deal for the secondary. I think it's a big downgrade because you're moving everybody up a slot. So cornerback 1, not as good. Cornerback 2, not as good. Cornerback 3, not as good. It's a big deal if it happens. Again, he's got to take care of himself.
Yeah, I hope.
I don't say this to be callous about the personal stuff for him. You guys talked about it eloquently. We all love Denzel Ward. We want him to be healthy. We want him to have a good life after football. But from a football perspective, if he doesn't play, if he misses a lot of time this year, that's a big problem. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that their defense is going to be bad. It's just I can't see them being the best defense in football without Denzel Ward. Yeah.
And he's so crucial to what they do too, because they like to not blitz. They want to play man single high safety, get after you with 4, and they're great at it. Miles, Adarius, the interior pass rush. But you can do that because you can hold up in the secondary, because you have Denzel, who's a legit number 1 corner. Emerson, who's an emerging corner, and Newsome's one of the best slot corners. When you slide those over to your point bowl, it's a lot harder to lock those guys down, and then you have to bring extra guys to generate that pressure. It has a direct impact on the entire defense if he's not in the field.
100%.
And that'd be a giant loss if he, for whatever reason, and we're obviously hoping it's not a long-term thing. And Tyvis, I know you said the magic number in the 2 cases you talked to was 6. I just hope we never have to get to 6 with Denzel. I hope this is the last time we ever have to talk about Denzel Ward, concussions, protocol, all that stuff for his own personal life.
Right.
But also for the sanctity and the ceiling of the Browns defense.
But the reality is, who thinks he's not going to get another concussion? I mean, if I had to bet all my money, will Denzel Ward get another concussion or not? Sadly, I'm going to bet he's going to get one.
Yeah.
And it's only because of how he just got this one.
Right. That's the big red flag.
If you would have said that him and somebody collided head to head,
right?
And he had I'd be like, all right, he can come back. But the fact that you just went for a ball and just fell, Like, did his head like hit the ground? Like, I didn't know more too.
It's on YouTube, so I can't put it through Tagboard, but I'll text it to you guys, and you guys can watch it real quick in live time. Give me 1 second, I'll send you the clip.
They've done enough studies that once you have one, you're more susceptible to another, and then another, and then another. And clearly he's at that point.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. And it's
and how many times has he been in the protocol and then cleared without?
Twice. In the NFL. Twice in the NFL.
Yeah, where because I remember having that conversation last year of, Denzel's back in protocol.
Right.
And then they cleared him and said, no, it wasn't concussion. But still, it was something serious enough to at least have to examine him.
I know Steve.
All you guys check your phone. I just sent you the clip.
Okay.
I apologize to the YouTube audience out there. We can't play it because it's through YouTube. But you guys can get live reaction to watching the play that Denzel suffered this concussion on.
Steve Becker should be happy they got Jahan Dotson from the Commanders.
Wait a second.
You see the play?
I'm seeing it. Does his helmet?
I'm waiting on mine to play.
It looks like his helmet might have hit the ground.
More kind of falls on him, his head, it looks like.
Yeah, but it's not like a head-on
but
collision.
There's certainly a lot nastier plays than that every week.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell exactly what happens.
I'm going to put that link in the chat for anyone who wants to see it.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that link in the chat for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, the back of his head hits the ground and he land and Elijah land on it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean when he actually went down, he kind of like snapped it and kind of hit the ground.
Yeah.
So all right, that makes me feel better because remember I told you when
that happens every game.
Yeah,
that's a routine
no, not necessarily like that. Not with that much force. I told you I thought I rung my bell a little bit when I hit this dude and I smacked my head on the turf and I felt I was ringing a little bit. So I can get why that.
Yeah, it's not a nothing play.
I agree. It's not nothing
head to head.
But it's not something that like if he goes for a routine and like goes like this and lands in front of like he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like as long as he keep his head out of it.
I guess nothing burger is in. That could happen on any play in any
could.
situation.
It could.
That's not something that he. He didn't put himself in a bad position to get hurt. That's just a routine football play that ended up with him hitting his head on the turf.
That's true.
Yeah, see, I thought like he was going to make a play or like he just kind of like fell to the ground. Like I didn't know the back of his head like hit the ground. Like that's
it's a little hard. He's a little blocked by.
And on top of that, I think if you get hit in the back of the head, that's like the worst way to get one.
But
so
you would think that he would wear
he had it on.
guard. Oh, he did have it on.
He did have it on for that play too, which also does not help the.
It's not a miracle cure.
No.
It's your brain being jostled around within your head. So nothing can stop that completely. There's no equipment that can completely stop that from happening. So, all right, Mike.
All right, Bull, I got a question for you. We're going to produce on the fly real quick. Let's save the Guardians between our two guests. We'll talk about that game in that 10 minutes. Let's talk about your crazy idea for the Browns in the future.
What? Crazy?
I think it is crazy, and we'll tell you what it is after a quick reminder that if you want to subscribe to the UCSS newsletter, you can text the number at the bottom of your screen. Every Monday at 9 a.m., the newsletter gets sent out. Earl writes a little article. Steve Becker has a top 5. We give some member shout-outs. It gives you a recap of anything you may have missed from UCSS the previous week and a little schedule preview of what's coming up on UCSS the following week. So make sure you guys hit the newsletter button by texting the number you see on your screen, and you can be signed up for the exclusive UCSS newsletter, which comes out every Monday at 9 a.m. Bo, this was a topic idea that you came up with, so I'm going to let you set it up and describe how you kind of came to the mindset you came to for this particular topic.
So, when you do what we do and you're thinking about sports all the time, you're always thinking about other things, whatever. Things are always passing through your head about the future or the sports or whatever. And we've had a lot. I think we would all agree, to one level or another, that we don't really know what to expect for Deshaun Watson. I think Tyvis, of the three of us, is probably the most optimistic about Deshaun this year.
That's correct.
But it's fair to say you don't know what to expect because he hasn't played that much.
Listen, ticking time bomb. He going to go crazy this season.
And if he does...
I'm telling you.
All right. And if you're right and he does, then we'll all be thrilled and then the conversation is over.
Yes.
But recently, I was listening to something where they were talking about the fact that Dak Prescott and the Cowboys have not reached an agreement on an extension. In fact, it's so weird. If Jerry Jones is one of the richest owners in football, and yet he seems very cheap.
The 30th ranked team in terms of actual cash spent.
Is he the richest owner of everybody in the NFL?
I'm not sure if he's the richest owner. The Cowboys are the most valuable franchise.
Right. So he's definitely one of the richest owners. And yet he's kind of cheap. He hasn't paid CeeDee Lamb. He hasn't paid Dak Prescott. And they've lost a number of free agents. They got, I know he's your boy, Zeke Elliott, but they've got no running back.
Hey.
Oh, stop it. You know he shot.
1,000 yards this
Yeah, averaged 3.5 yards a carry.
1,000 yards, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. Book it.
I'll bet you a dinner. We'll bet a dinner.
What?
We're treating to a dinner.
That he get 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns?
He won't get either. Well, he could get the 9 touchdowns. Because they'll just throw him in on the goal line.
They are up to 17 games.
I won't bet on the touchdowns, but I bet you he doesn't get 1,000 yards.
Let me think about it.
All right, you think about it. So it got me thinking. Now, I think ultimately the Cowboys will probably re-sign Dak. But if Deshaun Watson is not good this year, if he's just a guy or worse, and if Dak Prescott does not re-sign with the Cowboys next year, between now and then, if I'm the Browns, I'm not, because if Deshaun Watson stinks this year, don't we all agree they have to have a new plan for the right going forward? I know he's still going to be here under contract for 2 years, but if he stinks this year, if he's mediocre, you gotta start coming up with another strategy.
You gotta have an exit strategy.
Yes. Now it's probably the way they'll go is go young and draft somebody, probably because they're spending so much money on Deshaun Watson. But Jimmy is not afraid to spend, as we know. And if I were the Browns and Deshaun Watson had a bad year, I would go all in and I would sign Dak Prescott at the end of next season.
Sheesh, so you're going to pay 2 big contracts.
2 things about Dak Prescott. One, in my opinion, he is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. All the guy does is put up big numbers. Yes, they have not won a ton of playoff games, and there have been some games where he hasn't played great, okay? But overall, he's played very well in the playoffs, and when they have lost, it has generally not been his fault. Unlike Lamar Jackson, who's been terrible in the postseason for the most part.
Why you got to bring Lamar?
I'm just saying. I feel like
Lamar ain't got nothing to do with this.
Because I feel like Lamar, Dak, and Josh Allen are all put in the same boat in the playoffs, and I think that's unfair because Dak and Josh Allen have actually played well in the playoffs. Lamar's played like crap mostly in the playoffs. His numbers in the playoffs stink. Okay, but all right, getting back to Dak. The guy led the league in touchdowns last year. He's got no running game. His offensive line was completely banged up last year. Jerry Jones doesn't spend like we say. Spends on his whatever. The point is, I think Dak is a great quarterback. I think he's no doubt a top 8 quarterback in the league. And for some reason, he doesn't get the kudos that a lot of other top quarterbacks do. I don't understand it. When he's been healthy, he's pretty much always been excellent. Now, he's also like younger than I thought he was. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I thought he was in his mid-30s. He just turned 31.
Yeah,
31.
Just turned 31 a couple of weeks ago. So he's still got at least 3-4 years in his prime, you would think. He's a good athlete. He's a smart guy, smart quarterback. I mean, again, I know it's before the season. Hopefully we don't even have to have any of these conversations. But I was thinking about this. I mentioned it to Mike, so he said, why don't you bring it up? So there you go. I think if it doesn't go well again, even though you're already – and now you can be paying quarterbacks a crazy amount of money, maybe it's not even possible. I don't know.
2 things. One.
But if it's financially possible, I would 100% – because the Browns have a team that's ready to win. And if you go rookie quarterback, you're not going to win that way unless you get very lucky. Dak Prescott on this roster, let's put it this way right now. If Dak Prescott were on this roster, we'd feel a lot better right now. I know I would. You would, I'm certainly.
Super Bowl.
And I'd be thinking Super Bowl without a doubt right now.
Yeah.
Even though he hasn't, again, I'll be fair, he hasn't always been great in the playoffs. He's been great sometimes. Sometimes he hasn't been as good. But I would feel much more confident right now.
Who has been great all the time in the playoffs other than Mahomes?
Tom Brady. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Joseph.
Huh?
Joseph Burrow.
He hasn't always been great.
Yes, he has.
He's been mostly very good, but that's it.
He's been good.
And Josh Allen.
Wait a minute. When has he been bad?
He's never been bad in the playoffs. He's had some games where he's been okay. I'm being fair about it. He's my guy, and I'm being fair about it.
I'm not. Yeah. Slim Shady's been good every time he's been in the postseason.
Look, as a team, they've been good every game in the playoffs. There's been one or two games where he's been fine, but not great. Not bad. He's never played bad in the playoffs.
They got to go look it up.
And for the most part, Josh Allen hasn't. And that's it. It's really just Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen that have mostly played well every time in the playoffs. Everybody else got plenty of bad games. And to me, if I could get Dak Prescott, if I could get him right now, I'd do it. But certainly, if it doesn't go well this year, I'd take Dak.
This is what I'll say.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of being around Deshaun for 1 week when I was with the Houston Texans. Just 1 week. Now they cut me like 1 week. Bam. Saturday.
You were in, you were out. Boom.
Bam. Out of there. So I got to be around Deshaun for a week. I got to be around Dakota Prescott for a preseason. Now, Dakota Prescott, I have my thoughts about him. I always thought he was an overrated guy. I was like, this kid. Really? Yeah, I was like, he get all this publicity and he ain't really that good to me, right? I tell you what, I sat down with this guy and I had lunch with this guy. Yeah. And I just listened to how this guy just talks and goes about it. He's actually a really good quarterback. He's a great leader, actually. Like my whole thoughts of him changed when I met the guy. Like he's really actually a really good, cool guy. But what I liked about him in Dallas when I was there for the preseason, I was just there for the preseason, just four weeks. 4 weeks, okay? So take what I say with a grain of salt. That offense, the way he commanded that offense, it was like the coach could just do nothing. Like, he got this. He'll take over. It was. Yeah. And I realized he was much more valuable than I thought he was. And when I seen him not in there with the offense, you could tell that it was like, So I got a lot of respect for Dak Prescott once I played for the Cowboys and seen how he did his business. And I think that he will be great wherever he goes. However, there's no way in the world that they paying somebody $230 million and then they're going to turn around and pay this man that much money too and had the most expensive quarterback room in the world. So it ain't happening. You can LIG that thought. Let it go. It's not happening.
The only thing I would say is this group, ownership, front office, has proven that they will make bold moves.
And be creative.
And going and even flying to Houston and meeting with Deshaun when you had Baker was a bold move.
Yeah.
I tweeted at the time they had the most to lose of anybody who was pursuing Deshaun. They were the only team with a young established quarterback in the franchise. And they pushed all in anyway because Jimmy wanted better at that spot.
Yeah.
I don't know the cap gymnastics it would take.
It would be serious.
but the other thing that I will mention, and again, we'll say, this is a worst case scenario type thing.
Yeah.
You got 2 years left with Miles. You got 2 years left.
That's right.
If this season unravels and you're trying to come up with an exit strategy at quarterback or you're trying to figure something out at quarterback, you're doing that with your last season of control over Miles. And that's a dangerous game to play. So, yes, this team is structured to win right now. Right now. This is the window.
And within the next 2-3 years, you're probably – the following guys will either be gone or past their peak, including Miles, Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller. All those guys 3 years from now, clearly – I mean, it'd be an upset if any of them are not at the very least on the downhill climb.
3 years from now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so
I mean,
the Browns can't afford to just let's draft a quarterback at 19.
And they know that. That's why they didn't go the rookie route when they moved on from Baker.
Right.
Because they knew then. So it's even more so. So hopefully Deshaun plays well and it's a moot point. But I do think if this unravels on him this year, there's a lot of hard conversations that have to be. I mean, it's funny you mentioned this because when I was on the phone with Zach this morning, we were just talking about like the Denver situation. And Denver just ate it with Russ.
Right.
They just ate it. And they took one season where you had to step back and recalibrate and you had to eat the contract and then figure out how to move forward. Minnesota did it with their money as well. And the Browns, if it would be like 30% of the cap still.
Yeah.
So and hopefully these nuclear options don't even come into play.
Right.
But I mean, it's better to have this conversation in August than October and November.
That's right. That's it. And I think the Browns would have to seriously consider it. To the point where if it's the midway point of the season and Deshaun's just having a really bad year or if he's hurt again, if I'm Jimmy, I'm like, I'm calling Dak's agent and saying, hey, don't sign with Dallas. We're gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
It takes two in that situation. Yeah. He has to want to come. Whoever it is.
Yeah, right.
Dak
sure.
or whoever has to want to come here too.
They say Dak should. If Dak leaves Dallas, I think he should go to the Seahawks. I think it'd be a nice fit for him.
All right. Well,
he is from all accounts, a phenomenal dude.
No, he is. I'm telling you firsthand.
Dude.
I was like, you legit. Like, I thought you was a phony. I ain't gonna lie. I thought he was kind of a phony, but he actually legit.
So you thought he was a phony because Russ was a phony.
Russ was not a phony.
Oh, I thought you said that he was.
No, I said Russell's a great guy. I thought he was a great guy.
You always say that. It feels like you're being a tiny bit sarcastic.
He wasn't. Russell is a great guy. Like, I had no beef with Russell.
So why does Sherm always rip him?
He's not a good football player. That's it. Sherm would tell you. He's a great guy. He's just not a good football player.
Not a great football player.
I told you the story about the check.
The check?
The rookie dinner and the check with the tie.
Oh, yeah.
I got it.
And the restaurant picked it up.
Listen.
But Russ was telling everyone,
I got it. For it.
I got it.
Oh.
They showed me love for my rookie dinner. Thank God for Sherm and Cam for picking up my tab. They made me pay like $1,000 and then they took the rest. I was like, thank you.
Still paid $1,000.
The bill was like 10. They was getting Louis the 13, getting double bottles, steaks, everything. Shit, took a plate to go home. I was like, y'all ridiculous.
Undrafted guys shouldn't have to pay.
That's what I said.
All right, Robert Mays is with us.
We're going to bring in our guest after a quick word from FanDuel. You guys have heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and, well, we have something a little different for you guys today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to download America's #1 sportsbook. And with that, we are thrilled to welcome on Robert Mays, the main host of the Athletic Football Show, to our program today. Robert, how you doing today? Thanks for joining us on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show.
Robert, you hear us?
Yeah, he clearly can't hear us.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, there we go. Beautiful. What's up, Robert? How you doing? Thanks for joining us today.
I'm here. Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Robert, I got to say, the Cubs hat in Cleveland is not going to go over well. I'm going to warn you.
Coming from a Cubs fan.
I am a Cubs fan, that's true. But the rest of Cleveland...
Yeah, no.
I got the exact same response when I was in Cleveland for training camp, unfortunately. So I come by, as a Chicagoan, I come by it honestly, and it all, for the most part, it's really just so I don't have to worry about my hair. If that makes you feel any better about it.
Are you with me that Jed Hoyer should be fired right now?
There's just such a forgettable team. Like, there's just so little excitement about like what they've done and where they're going that I would not necessarily mind a little bit of a revamp. No.
Would you trade Dansby Swanson for his wife right now?
I don't know. Can she play, or is it more just like a vibes thing?
Probably better than him. I mean, that contract's a total waste. I guess I would be open to it. Still.
I'll take a look at the books and we'll figure it out, but I'm open to it.
All right, Robert, let's get to football before we piss off the rest of the fans. We were just having a conversation. Obviously, it's kind of silly right now, but I was making the point that as crazy as it would be from a salary cap standpoint, that, in my opinion, and I obviously want your take on this, I have always felt that Dak Prescott's the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. I know he hasn't had great playoff success. I don't think a lot of that's his fault. I feel like people crap on him more than any other good quarterback in the league. And I said that if Watson can't turn it around this year, even though you still owe him for a couple of years, and if Dak doesn't re-sign in Dallas, that if I'm the Browns, with Myles Garrett having only a couple of years left, and Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller and Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper, although I don't know if Amari will be here next year, I would go all in and do whatever I had to get Dak next year if Watson flops again this year. Crazy, not crazy? What do you say?
I don't don't think it's crazy on a football level. I think the finances of it just become a little bit difficult to pull off.
No doubt.
I mean, even this team that has done an admirable job of navigating around all of this and just the way that they've moved money around and the cash that they've spent. I mean, if they move on from Watson next year, I think he has like $110 million dead cap hit, even if it's like a post-June 1st thing. So I just don't think that there's any reasonable scenario where they can move on from Watson after this season and be able to field a team. So yeah, in a vacuum, absolutely I would do that, because I think that this team with Dak Prescott, if they weren't the Super Bowl favorite, they'd probably be in the top 3 or 4. But I just don't think there's any reasonable path for that to happen.
Robert, when you look at this offense, obviously they went out and got Jerry Jeudy, and obviously Nick Chubb is coming off of an injury. When you look at this offense, they've been kind of a middle-of-the-pack team. Is getting Ken Dorsey in here and helping with that offense the answer to unlocking this offense, to making them become maybe a top 10 offense? Or do you think that it's just going to crash and burn?
It's a great question. I mean, I think that part of the reason that they've struggled at times over the last couple of years, beyond some of the issues with the quarterback play, is they've been kind of put in a small box in terms of what they did well. Nick Chubb was really the engine of this team, and then they did complementary things off of that, whether it was the play action game, some of the things they did in the screen game. And I think the move to Ken Dorsey is twofold. It's a chance and a pursuit of trying to get the best version of Deshaun Watson, because you're likely going to be moving to an offense that is a little bit more spread out, lives in the shotgun, a lot of the things and a lot of the ideas that Ken did when he was in Buffalo. And two, I think it's about diversifying what your passing game looks like. When this team could just get under center and just run play action, deep shots over and over and over again, it looked beautiful. But in the NFL today, it's just hard to live like that. So I think that transitioning to more of a modern, diversified drop-back game, the ceiling for that and the possibilities for that give this team options they haven't had in years past. How quickly they take to that and what the acclimation process looks like, I think that becomes the biggest question for the quarterback and for the offense as a whole.
Robert, it's just been a weird preseason here. It's just been bizarre, and that's the word I used at the start of the show. The stuff about Deshaun and whether or not he's going to play in Seattle, and he's got a sore arm. How does he have a sore arm? He's hardly thrown the ball over the last week. The offensive line is in shambles. Jed Wills had arthroscopic surgery 9 months ago and still isn't back. Just what's your overall feeling of the success rate and where this team's at right now? And do they have enough time to pull this thing together in time for the opener?
I'm worried about it. I mean, I think it's hard not to be worried about it. When you think about the way that Watson played when he was on the field last year, there's no way you can look at this in a sober way and just say, oh yeah, I feel good about where the offense is headed. I feel good with what he's going to provide. I mean, we haven't seen him play more than a handful of games in like 3 or 4 years. So I just don't understand what the path for optimism is necessarily with the quarterback. And then I think that extends to what's going on with the offensive line. I mean, the fact that your 2 starting tackles still haven't been able to really practice for you, and we're a few weeks away from the opener. And, we saw what happened to this team when they had to dig into some of the tackle depth last year. And James Hudson's hurt too, right? I mean, so it's just, again, some of the same issues that arose near the end of last season. It feels like they're chipping away at those again. So if I were a Browns fan or I was somebody in that building, I would definitely have some trepidation about how this has gone in the month or so since they got back.
Yeah, it's not been pretty. I mean, now general soreness for Deshaun Watson. You talked about the offensive line. They're banged up in terms of their tight end depth. Denzel Ward has a concussion. I mean, there's still a lot to like about this team on the defensive side of the ball, certainly. But, yeah, it doesn't feel great heading into the start of the season having to play Dallas in week 1.
There's no doubt. And let's say they're the best defense in the league last year. There were certain stats that you can look at that they were a historically good defense from the last 25 years. They were dominant for huge stretches of that season. That's not going to happen again. The history will tell you that's just not going to happen again. And they know that. They know that defense, for the most part, comes back to earth at least a little bit after you've had a season like they did last year. It's not crazy or insulting to suggest that this goes from being a borderline historically good defense to merely a defense that finishes somewhere in the top 5. And if that happens, I'm just not sure how much optimism I have in where this offense can go for that group to pick up the slack. And what that means at the end of the road, that formula and that equation overall, where does that leave you? Where does that leave you in the AFC? It probably means that you're a competitive but not overly dangerous team. And when you consider all the money this team has spent, all of the things that they've moved around and all of the talent that's on this roster, that's a kind of difficult thing to stomach as an end game.
Go ahead,
Robert,
Mike.
you mentioned the defense, and on the Athletic Football Show with Derek, you guys talked about your top 10 defenses entering next season. You guys, despite mentioning the fact that historically speaking, teams don't stay at the top of the defensive rankings, you guys both picked the Browns as your top defense for 2024. So why would you make that selection despite what history tells you in terms of teams taking a step back after having a defensive season like the Browns did last year?
Because every other good defense has lost pieces. You know, it's such a strange year. If you look at the best defenses in the league from last year, almost every single one of them has lost a major piece or important depth. You know, the Jets, I think, are probably the team that's brought back the most important pieces from who they've been. But even they've chipped away at one of the things that's really made them great, which is that defensive front depth. Quentin Jefferson's now in Cleveland. Obviously, John Franklin Myers is now in Denver. And they've got guys. They've spent so many high draft picks at that position. There's a chance they can refill it. But that's a question. Baltimore loses Mike McDonald and several key defensive starters. So even if you're bullish on the Ravens defense, there are some question marks there. The Patriots defense had the guys to be a really, really good unit heading into this season. They traded Matthew Judon. They traded their best pass rusher. So I think every other team has so many question marks that when you look at it from afar, you think, all right, even if the Browns take a step back, they brought back every key piece of this. They got better in some areas. Again, like Quinn Jefferson's still like a pretty decent player. They've got depth in important areas, so they can regress and still be the best defense in the league. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that it's often more volatile than that, and going from what they were to third or fourth, that's what history will tell us normally happens. I still think they might be the safest bet, though.
Robert, you know, we was talking earlier about Denzel Ward suffering his 5th concussion. And a guy that's been having a really good training camp is Martin Emerson. Do you see him, if Denzel isn't able to go this season because of concussions, can you see Martin Emerson being a true CB1?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think that the way that this team is looking at it, it doesn't really matter what the hierarchy is. I think it's more about having two guys on the outside that consistently can play man coverage. So even if Emerson is a guy who could potentially step into that role, I think the downgrade you're going to have at your second outside cornerback spot, that becomes the more pressing issue rather than whether Martin Emerson is up for kind of that distinction within this defense.
It's a fair point. Robert, when you look at the division right now, how do you obviously we talked about the concerns on the Browns. The division's loaded. How do you see the division stacking up right now? The most likely order of finish, if you had to pick it right now.
If I had to pick it right now, I'd still probably say the Ravens first, the Bengals second, probably the Browns third, and then the Steelers fourth. I just think that the Steelers have enough holes at other areas of the roster. If you look at the pass catchers that team has, some of the question marks on defense, nickel corner, second safety, linebacker, they've made some changes, but we'll see how fast it all comes together. And then, we still have real questions about what that offense is going to look like and who the quarterback is. With the Bengals, I think the defense still has question marks, but the offense has a chance to be really, really good again. Like, they have their full stable of guys back, and if it's a top 5 offense, I trust that unit to kind of lift them, even if they have some stops and starts on defense. And even with some of the losses for Baltimore, I still think that is a really good team on both sides of the ball.
Kind of along those lines, one of the guys on the panel yesterday, Earl's a huge Browns fan, and he asked the question, what is more likely, the Chiefs win a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl or the Browns win the division? I said the Chiefs winning a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl is more likely than the Browns winning the division, but I'm curious what you think.
I think that might be true. I think the main barrier to that is just that it's really, really, really hard to win the Super Bowl. But right now, I think that the Chiefs pretty clearly should be the favorites to win the Super Bowl again. If you think about what they brought back on defense, I mean, this was an offense that was outside the top 10 in a lot of metrics last year, and they still won the Super Bowl. Like, that was supposed to be their off year. Yeah, I think that they're going to be better on both sides of the ball this year than they've been over the last couple. And I think that there is a path forward for the Browns, right? If Deshaun Watson can be the 20th best quarterback in the NFL this year, and the offensive line gets back healthy, there is absolutely a path forward for this Browns team to win 11 and 12 games. And if the Bengals defense doesn't come together, and if the Ravens do take a step back on defense, there's a path forward for them in the division. But I think it is more narrow than Browns fans probably want to think. And I would say it's right there with the Chiefs' ability to win the Super Bowl.
Damn, that is depressing, though, Robert. You said Deshaun being the 20th best quarterback as if that was
that's a high bar to get to.
And I get why you say that.
Yeah.
But the Browns gave up a ton of draft picks and a ton of. Baker Mayfield was the 20th best quarterback.
He was better than 20. He was better than 20, and I'm no Baker fan.
No, he wasn't. Not over a 4 year.
Yes, he was.
He was around 20.
He was.
Come on.
He was middle of the pack.
20 is mid.
No, it's not.
No,
There's
it ain't.
2 teams. That's
back to 16.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
If you dropped 2023 Baker Mayfield onto the 2024 Browns, and I could promise you that you got at least 13 games out of Jed Wills and Jack Conklin, what do you think that their record would be?
I think they have a good record, and they'd lose in the first round of the playoffs.
That's probably fair. But I think that if this team finished with like a top half of the league offense this year, and which I think they could potentially do with last year's version of Baker Mayfield, and the defense was as good as we think it would be, that's a much better team than whatever they've gotten out of Deshaun Watson over the last couple of years.
That's fair.
Like,
I just think
20th is a miracle compared to the way that he's played over the last 2 years.
That's fair, Robert. But the truth, and Baker stunk the year before, though. Like, he's 1 year good, 1 year bad. We'll see what he is this year. The truth is they didn't think Baker was good enough at the position. I agree. I don't think you can win. I think in 1987 you could win with a quarterback like Baker Mayfield, even with the Ravens defense in the early 2000s, maybe even that last great Seahawks defense. We haven't seen a defense that good. I don't know if we're ever going to see a defense to that caliber anymore. I don't think the Browns were at that level last year. And I don't think you can win with an average quarterback, and that's what I think Baker is. That's just my thoughts on it, but what do you think?
I think that you can win with an average quarterback if you're paying him on a rookie salary and if you have everything else in place. And obviously everything else is easier to put in place when you have the money to spend. But I think that the Lions could win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff as their quarterback right now. Like, I do think that is possible, but you have to have a top 5 play caller. You have to have the best offensive line in the league. You have to have pass catchers who, even after his extension, Amon-Ra St. Brown is still making pennies compared to what he deserves on the open market. Right. A guy like Sam Laporta, like, everything else has to fall in line. The problem with the Browns is they're paying their quarterback $62 million against the cap, and you're hoping that he's an average player. Yeah. That's just a really difficult world to live in.
I hear what you say. I personally think Jared Goff's a little better than average. Like, I think Jared Goff's better than Baker Mayfield, don't you?
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But I think that Jared Goff, in the best case scenario, is still probably like the 13th or 14th best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, probably somewhere.
And to win it, to go all the way with a guy like that, you need so many things to fall into place. Yeah. See, somebody like Brock Purdy is a different example. He's making $1 million. Yeah. Like, the team that you can surround around Brock Purdy, and I honestly think that Kyle Shanahan is almost like like the qualifier there is like you almost have to ignore it. Like, if Kyle Shanahan is involved with the equation probably doesn't apply to anyone else. But I do think the Lions with Goff right now is probably like the best path forward for that sort of team.
Man. What do you think about Nick Chubb, Robert? It doesn't sound like you're super high on Deshaun Watson, but are you confident Nick Chubb can, coming off that knee injury, get back to at least 80% of the Nick Chubb we had seen the last few years?
When I was there probably 2.5 weeks ago, and I was asking about the Nick Chubb timeline, and the line that was given to me, which I think is totally fair. It's like, if anybody can come back from that quicker than he should and better than he should, it's Nick Chubb. I mean, the man is a cyborg. Like, I'm not going to bet against him in any way, shape, or form. And I want him to come back at that clip and as a version of the player that we've seen in the past, because he's truly one of the most exciting players in the league. So if I had to bet on it right now, I'd probably bet that we do see 80% of Nick Chubb at some point this season, but that might just be me wishing that we eventually get there because of how much I love Nick Chubb.
Right. You mentioned the Jets defense before. I'm curious. Everybody seems to be super high on the Jets except for me, because I think Aaron Rodgers at 41, is he 41 or 40? Coming off
he's 40 right now.
Right, so 40, coming off a torn Achilles, and let's face it, his last year in Green Bay, he wasn't special anymore. He was still good, but he wasn't Aaron Rodgers his last year there. I just don't see how people can be that confident in Aaron Rodgers playing at a high enough level, even though obviously their defense is great. I love their running back. I love their top receiver. I just don't buy into the Jets like everybody else does. What do you got? What do you think about that?
I think there's still plenty of reasons to be concerned, and there are plenty of reasons to have doubt. I mean, the offensive line should be better, but it's a group that has been oft injured over the past couple of years. Even though they do have more depth there with Fashanu, and I think that there is a path to them being a decent offensive line for the first time in a while. The Rodgers stuff, I think a lot of people who are seeing this optimistically and giving this a chance to succeed are going to point back to the conversations that we were having about Aaron Rodgers in 2018. Go back and read about what people were writing about Aaron Rodgers in 2018. Right. And the fact that he was done, he was washed, and then Matt LaFleur comes in, he becomes engaged again, and he wins 2 MVPs. So that's the argument in favor of the Aaron Rodgers experiment with the Jets.
But he was 34, though, Robert. He was 34.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
And I think going back, and I've had similar concerns, we've had similar conversations about this. How good was he actually the last time that we saw him in Green Bay?
Yeah.
And my stance on this is that physically, he was still making all the throws. He was still capable of doing and putting the ball where he wanted to in the same way he had in years past. What it looked like his last year in Green Bay is that he was over it. There was a young receiving core. Devontae Adams was gone. I think that the relationship he had with Matt LaFleur had kind of run its course. So there's a chance, and this is what you have to be hoping for if you're the Jets, that if he is engaged again, the physical skill set hasn't diminished enough where you can get a guy who's 80% of what he was when he won those MVPs. I think that's more narrow than Jets fans probably want to believe, but I do think that there is a path for that happening.
Robert, you got the Bears helmet behind you, and I got to ask you about this Caleb Williams thing. Are you excited about the plays that he made, or do you think that if Justin Fields was still there, he could have done better?
I definitely am excited about the plays that he made. I mean, the scramble for a touchdown, that's whatever. That, Justin Fields is going to do that. Justin Fields has done that. The biggest difference to me, and people I think are going to paint them with similar brushes in terms of how long they hold on to the ball, the tendency to potentially take sacks as we get into the season. The key difference in my mind, is that Justin Fields, while a physically talented player, was never a creative player. Justin Fields was robotic in the pocket. His throwing motion is robotic. He is not a creative player from the pocket. Arm angles, moving around the pocket, changing arm slots, throwing off platform. Those are things that Justin Fields did not do well. That is the selling point with Caleb Williams. So the running around stuff, that I don't really care about. But some of the things he can do in terms of creative throwing and creative playmaking, that is an element of his game that Justin Fields never had, and that's why I think that distinction is important.
Robert, great stuff, great insight. Check out the Athletics Football Podcast. We appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime.
Thanks. Robert Mays, he's really good.
Very good, and his podcast, The Athletic Football Show. We had Derek Clausen on a couple weeks ago, who's his co-host. They come out 2-3 times a week. Definitely worth your time if you get a chance to listen. And we appreciate Robert for taking some time to join us here on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We're going to talk some Guardians Bowl in a sec. Reminder, if you're out there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Do us a favor. It costs you $0, 0 cents, and goes a long way to helping us on the back end of YouTube. So thank you guys for watching and supporting the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Bull, not a great Guardians game yesterday. Joey Cantillo got smoked. And I'm at the point where I'm just not pitching to Judge or Soto for the rest of the series. I'd honestly walk those two, let everyone else in the lineup beat me, but those two guys, I'm just not pitching to anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, well.
It was bad. It got bad.
Beyond fast. That, I mean, listen, that's whatever. Fine, those guys are great. We all know that. The Guardians' offense is in a major free fall right now. I know they had that great, was the 11th inning or the 12th inning? I don't remember now. On Tuesday
But
night.
they still stranded 117 runners.
But until that inning, they stranded 100
They stranded
runs.
17 before, and they ended up with 20.
The Yankees walked them 11 times in the first 10 innings, and they scored 1 run. I mean, that's crazy. The offense is in a complete free fall, and for the first time all season, I am very concerned about this team. Nobody's hitting right now, really. You lost Alex Cobb, who you just got. Lane Thomas can't hit at all. I mean, even against the lefties, striking out. I mean, he's terrible right now. Fry's mostly been terrible. I know he had the big hit in extra innings, but let's be honest, it was a bloop. It was just hit perfectly.
Soto should have caught it. He should have caught it.
Yeah.
I said that yesterday.
I'm really worried about this offense. Now, they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm very worried about I'm very worried about the 1 seed. I'm very worried about the division. The Royals are not going away.
No.
The Twins are not going away. I'm not saying those teams can't hit slumps too, but they're going to have to fight to the end. And it's funny because the first couple of months of the season, you knew there was some concern down deep, Jason, with the lineup. But you thought, okay, but it's way better than last year. And right now we're back to the lineup is back to what we all thought about this lineup heading into the season. We're right back there because Stephen Kwan has been awful.
Yeah,
Fry's been awful.
That breaks my heart.
Bull, I saw a stat
Naylor's been awful
over the last 10 days.
Yeah.
This was from Twitter yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to whoever put this out there. I'll find it. They don't have a single hitter hitting over 250 over the last 10 days.
And okay, it's just a 10-day stretch, but for Kwan, it's been longer that he's been slumping. For Fry, it's been longer. None of the guys in the bottom of the lineup doing anything.
I jinxed them. With the 400. Man. Once I shouldn't have said.
Oh my God, he's like fifth in the league in batting average now. He might not even hit 300.
But remember, I don't know, when they were rolling, and we were talking about it, and I said, like, none of this makes sense because exit velo is about like launch angle. All the numbers are fairly comparable to last year.
Yeah.
The only one that was significantly different was pull percentage.
Right.
Like just yanking everything down the line. Everything else was kind of similar last year. Well, it looks like there's been that regression to the mean that we've seen the numbers were not drastically different than last year, and so now the play is sort of matching what those numbers are. And
you know what? Go ahead. Yeah.
Kwan, Jose, and Naylor have to carry this entire team.
They do, and
when they go cold at the same time, they've got no chance.
No chance. And here's the thing: the two things that were way above last year, early in the season, were hitting with runners in scoring position, and their BABIP. For those who don't know, that's batting average on balls in play.
And some of that's luck.
And there is luck there, right? There's a part of that's luck. And that's the only reason, like early in the season, you knew those things were probably unsustainable, but sometimes teams just get lucky in a year and it just happens for the whole year. Well, they've stopped getting luck and they've regressed. They've beyond regressed.
Yeah.
They're probably in those categories amongst I would guess, I haven't looked at it, amongst the worst in the league since the start of July in both of those categories. They are pressing. Everybody on this team is pressing with runners in scoring position. They got their butts are like this. Yeah. They're all tight. They are uptight every time they come to the plate and runners in scoring position. And by the way, as much as we love John Kenzie and those, he swings at so many bad pitches.
It's Oscar Gonzalez again.
Y'all need to stop.
It is. He's Oscar Gonzalez.
You got to play him because you have no better options right now.
You remember who I wanted at the trade deadline? You remember who I said I wanted?
You the shortstop
Paul
from
DeYoung.
Paul DeYoung.
How's
you
he
know what
doing?
he's
Really
doing?
good.
He's got an 850 OPS since the trade deadline and 3 home runs. Jeff Passan just tweeted about him this morning.
There were people saying, "Well, we don't need him. We don't need."
Where did he go to Rays?
The Royals. He's in the division.
And he could easily go in an 0 for 32. He's that
For
type
sure.
of player.
But he's better than frickin' Rocchio.
But here's the thing.
I'd put him at short in a second.
We talked about it. They needed to take multiple shots.
Rocchio
You
hit a
needed to
home
get
run.
3 guys, not 1 guy.
Don't do that.
Rocchio will not be an all-star.
Don't do that.
Tyvus, they're in 14th right now.
I know.
1 ahead of Seattle for 15th, and just 4 ahead of Kansas City for 16th.
Are you looking at total home runs or home runs per game?
Total.
We're far enough into the season.
Listen,
I
listen.
guess, yeah.
Y'all, you know what y'all problem is?
What?
Y'all worry too much. I really do.
I mean, they still have like the best record.
Yeah,
Not
like
anymore.
But they're right up there.
Like y'all got to stop it. Like it's baseball. It happens. It's gonna be highs. It's gonna be lows. You just don't want the lows to be. They're on a one game.
They've been a while.
They're on a 1-game losing streak.
They have a
right
losing record since.
They're on a 1-game losing streak
the
right
second
now.
week of July.
Currently, they on a 1. If they go out and win today, they won the series.
That's true.
So what are we
there's-
talking about?
And there's no. I mean, the Mariners are a disaster offensively.
What are we
too.
really
They've
sitting here
completely-
talking
the
about?
Mariners have
Hey,
completely cratered.
Listen, I'm someone who says what you say. Fine. But it doesn't mean we just give them a pass every time they play poorly.
It's
They've
bad.
been playing
It's
overall.
baseball. This is the sport. Y'all, this the only sport that if you go out there and strike 8 times out of 10 or 7 times out of 10, you still a really good baseball player.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about?
What we're talking about is the fact that they've been playing overall poor baseball for about 6 weeks.
The hitting has been bad.
Yes.
But they won just two nights ago.
I hear
against one of the best teams in baseball.
Nobody's saying the season's over.
Well,
I just said they're going
that's
to
how y'all
make the playoffs.
Y'all Debbie
Downer
Downer
we're saying there's
this
some
whole
real
thing.
concerns right now, and that's fair.
I hear the concerns. I agree with the concerns. But the fact of the matter is, if they go out there and win tonight, I'm cool.
It's Garrett Cole versus Gavin Williams.
Exactly.
Must see. This afternoon. It's a 1 o'clock.
You got to see this. I got to drive home with my phone on to see this. I got to pull a Jason.
You drive like this, driving the game on.
Bo, what do you expect from Gavin Williams tonight?
I mean, he's been 1 start good, 1 start bad. So hopefully,
he's due for a good.
If that trend continues, he'll pitch well. But
to do it again.
I mean, you just can't be that confident in him when he's got a 5.02 ERA.
And Cole's been pitching better. He was rough when he first came back. But
I mean, he's not vintage
form.
Cole right now, but he's better.
He's been better the last couple starts.
I don't know what to expect from Gavin Williams. He's been completely inconsistent.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
We're going to bring in our next guest, our last guest of today's show, after a quick word from Game Time. Whether you want to go to a Browns game, an Ohio State game, a Guardians game, a Cavs game, there's no easier and faster place to get your tickets online than with the Game Time app. Game Time's an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Plus, prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Game Time has killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and with their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying all your tickets, including with Major League Baseball. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with the Game Time app. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And with that, we are thrilled to welcome on the athletic director of the Ohio State Buckeyes. It is Ross Bjork, who I haven't seen in a while. Ross, how you doing, man? Long time no see.
Mike, I'm doing very well. How about you? Good to see you here in the great state of Ohio.
I'm glad this is
a little
reunion coming. Yeah. I got a little story for everybody about Ross at the end. We'll save that for the end. But Ross, thanks for joining us. How's the transition from Texas to Ohio State been?
And do you have any dirt on Mike that you can share with us?
Off camera. Off air. Off air. We'll do that. We'll do that off air. I definitely like the temperature this time of year when it's 78 degrees versus 108 degrees in Texas. So we'll take a 30-degree difference. But really, when I tell people, look, the fundamentals of college athletics are really not any different, no matter if you're at Texas A&M or Ohio State. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with budgets, you're dealing with fundraising. Obviously, all the changes in college athletics are impacting everyone. I think all we have to do is wait 30 minutes, and there might be something else that changes in our industry. So those things are the same. But the major thing is, look, we're the public trust of the state of Ohio, meaning everybody cares. We have 13 million fans. Everybody who's from Ohio or lives in Ohio, you're a Buckeye. And you may not want to be a Buckeye, but you sort of forced to because everybody talks about the Buckeyes. And so just kind of getting used to that, understanding that has been awesome. I had that 4-month overlap with Gene Smith from March to the end of June, and that was a gift and that was a blessing. And just, being able to watch him, observe what he does, how things work here, the culture, the people. And then now I'm 53 days on the job, and so I'm the new guy and still trying to figure a lot out. But it's been an awesome transition and just a great place to be.
Ross, you've made a couple of hires, since you've been on the job. How was that? What went into that? And, I think you got getting Jake Diebler and then getting the baseball coach, Justin Hare, I think his name. What went into that, and was those difficult for you?
Yeah. What I tried to make sure during that 4-month transition was Gene Smith was still the athletic director. I was the advisor, but there were long-term decisions, if there were long-term decisions that impacted beyond Gene's tenure, then I was going to be involved in those decisions. And so as it came to coaching searches, I led the search. Those were my decisions to hire the individuals that we selected to lead those programs. And I could use Gene as a resource. Obviously, he had the history, and obviously he's the one that made the decision to make a change in men's basketball the middle of February. He called me and said, so much for a sabbatical. You've got to do a basketball search. But actually, the way the basketball search went, I talked to at least 20 former players. I talked to a bunch of people around the Ohio State program. I'm not sure I would have done that otherwise. I'm not sure I would have had that opportunity to engage like that, except during that basketball search. So it actually allowed me to learn the place even quicker. And then just watching Jake, I mean, what a guy. I mean, just maturity level, recruiting. Every time I checked the sort of recruiting landscape with people that I knew, they would be like, oh, Jake Diebler is one of the top recruiters in the country. He's already dialed into the state of Ohio. He's already dialed in nationally. So really, really impressed with Jake during that process. And obviously he's proven that out with building a great roster. And now we just have to go into the season and have a lot of fun. But Jake's doing a great job, and had to hire a baseball coach, a softball coach, a rowing coach. I've never had to hire a rowing coach in my career. And so, yeah, we had 4 coaching hires, and I think all of them just fit Ohio State, and it was a great way for me to, again, learn the place maybe quicker than I would have otherwise.
Ross, just so you know, if your baseball coach needs some help,
Oh, boy.
I am an award-winning fall
What
baseball.
award did you win?
I'm going to win an award this year. Fall baseball for young kids. I'm a melder of minds.
The kid signing
So
the
keep me
ball
in
and giving
mind.
it to you at the end of the year ain't an award.
They love me.
Because they all get game balls.
Hey, stop it. No, serious question,
look.
though. You talked
Yeah.
about, you mentioned all the changes, and obviously with NIL and all this stuff. Obviously, that's a big challenge for anybody that's an athletic director at any big school. But specifically to Ohio State, as far as I know, you had no connections with Ohio State. Correct me if I'm wrong, before coming to Ohio State. And it is, we know as having a Buckeye here, and I've worked with either Tyvis or Dustin Fox, 2 Buckeyes, for the last 13 years. And it's important to understand the history, the culture of being a Buckeye, as you referenced. Is that one of the biggest challenges being at Ohio State, is learning that, knowing you got to connect with alums, former athletes and stuff like that, and understand what it means to be a Buckeye?
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily on my resume, if you will. And so maybe that's something that we should have talked more about. But my mom and her whole family grew up in Northwest Ohio on a family farm. And so I didn't grow up in Ohio, but my mom did. And her ringtone, ever since they invented ringtones, she's had Carmen, Ohio as her ringtone. She didn't have Texas A&M. She didn't have Ole Miss. So I've known about Ohio State for a long time. I don't know if you can see it. My uncle, Vernon, used to wear this T-shirt all the time. So this is my Uncle Vernon, who's no longer with us. He would wear a T-shirt, and I'd be like, what does that even mean? Woody's back. Woody passed away. Like, he's not coming back. And so the understanding of that, I think, has been helpful. But no, I'm not from here. I totally get it. And so having that connection, though, I think just helps. There we go. There's Coach Hayes right there on your screen. And so I think hearing about Ohio State, and the thing that really is, I think, just humbling is we always, as a family, we didn't go to Ohio State games. No one in my family except one of my cousin's husbands went to Ohio State. It was sort of unattainable. Growing up on a family farm, my parents didn't go to college. And so understanding that and then becoming the AD here, I made sure I soaked it all in. So I've read every history book that I can on Ohio State athletics. There's a great book, 1879 to 1959. It talks about really the beginning of athletics here. So I've studied, excuse me, my motion detector went off. I need to learn that part. I'm about to set that off. I've studied Ohio State history. I think that's very important that you're able to speak the language, that you know historical moments, that you understand what Coach Hayes did. You know, you understand the rivalry. I need to understand all those things. So I've tried to dive in while using some of those family roots, hopefully as a way to connect. And then I've just got to be myself. I can't change who I am. And then you just have to dive in and get after it.
Ross, trying to understand and keep up with things, we're trying to understand and keep up with NIL. Have you gotten your arms around that?
Tell me about it.
Yeah. How much of a game changer is this for you guys and just where the university's at? And is there a plan going forward on how you're going to pay these guys?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, we probably don't have enough time here. We can maybe do another show at some point in time. But you think about the beginning of NIL back in 2021. We really took a hands-off approach and said, look, we're going to let the market dictate what happens between the market and the athletes, and we'll provide education, and we'll make sure, we monitor some things. And then about a year later, we all said, you know what, we need to be more involved in this. We need to have some sort of enterprise sort of thinking about how do universities become more involved. The rules of the game, we're not quite there yet, but I thought there should be more university involvement. Ohio State stepped up and got more involved as an institution. State laws started evolving, etc. And then all of a sudden we get into really, I'd say, the summer of 2023, we started having injunctions, right? State court injunctions in the state of Tennessee that said, you know what, boosters, collectives can now talk to prospects. Whoa, that changed the game even more. Mm-hmm. And so we've had to lean in on it even more so. We have to be aware of what's going on. And so getting our arms around that piece of it, now we're finally here. Now we're going to have the house case. And we're going to have revenue sharing. And so you're going to have that bucket of money. And then you're still going to have third-party NIL. And what that third-party NIL system looks like is still to be determined. So once again, we're going to go through a third iteration of NIL. We had one, we had a little bit of an adjustment, and now we're going to have a third iteration of what we call NIL, while also mixing in revenue share. We're rapidly changing in college athletics, more so than we have in the last 172 years since the very first intercollegiate athletic competition. But the great thing about Ohio State is we have those 13 million fans. We have the state of Ohio. We have the city of Columbus. So whatever that third-party NIL ecosystem looks like, we will be well advanced. We will be ahead of the game. We will have some built-in advantages. But we will also have the revenue share bucket. And how that gets mapped out and how that gets shared is still being determined as well based on Title IX and roster limits. So there are so many moving parts right now in our industry that the fundamentals has changed a lot. But we got to figure this out, and I know we will because we're Ohio State.
Kind of along those lines, do you ever see the day when football leaves the NCAA and forms its own league? I know it's been a talking point in previous years.
Yeah, I think I sort of look at it this way. We need a national governing body. We need standards. We need regulations. There needs to be some uniformity on some of these things. But I think the way I look at that is the economics are just changing so much. And those of us that have the bigger brands, our economics are different. And I think we need to be able to govern certain categories differently than maybe what is housed within the NCAA. And so does that mean a full breakaway? Not necessarily. Does that mean we can take our economics and sort of consolidate them either further among the Big Ten or with other conferences or the bigger brands in college sports? I look at it more so that way than saying, hey, we don't need a governing body. I think we do need a governing body. But how do we govern ourselves within that? We have 355 Division I programs. And if you take the lowest budget, it's probably $10 million. And you take our budget, and we're $300 million. But yet, those same programs compete for the same postseason access that we do.
Right, it doesn't make sense.
Should it be that way anymore?
No.
Yeah.
Let alone FBS, 133 programs. And look, we love Akron. We're playing them. We love Western Michigan, right? Our state schools here in Ohio, the MAC is an awesome conference, right? And so if you look at that and say, okay, what's best for them? Do they really want to compete against Ohio State day to day? Economically, there's no way, right? It doesn't happen. And so how do we all find our place, but yet still have healthy competition? I think that's what I think of when you ask that question, is how do we get to that place where everybody has a spot, everybody's happy, we all know our place, we still have healthy competition, but the economics are different. And let's just recognize that and figure out how to govern that accordingly.
Ross, you talked about how everybody in Ohio is all Buckeyes and we're all Buckeye fans. Well, the Buckeye fans have been upset for the past 3 years because
I've heard about that.
Yeah, they've lost the big
game. My mom asked me about that. What are you going to do to fix that?
Where's that hot seat? Where y'all keeping that hot seat, Ross?
So this year, what have you seen them doing to change that? And if they do not win that game, what happens then?
Yeah. Look, you have to look. You always look big picture. I think any leadership moment, you can't react. Here's what I say. Look, ADs probably get blamed for way too much, and we get credit for way too much, right? Meaning you can never get too high or too low. You just can't. And so you have to look at the total wherewithal of the program. What I've been really impressed with, back to your first question, the first time I sat down with, I had never met Coach Day in my whole career. We never had a chance to overlap, interact, anything like that. So the very first time I sat down with him was on January 15th as my hire here at Ohio State was coming together. And I basically said, hey, Coach, what have you been doing since the game? Since the game finished. And he went through a whole list of all the things that he was working on. And it was an amazing approach to, look, we got to recalibrate. I've got to hire an offensive coordinator. Bill O'Brien had not been hired yet. Chip was a candidate at that time too. Bill was a candidate. Some other guys were candidates here. I'm going to hire an OC. We've got to retain the right guys on the roster. We've got to be more aggressive in the NIL space, and we've got to raise more money for the NIL. We've got to have an infrastructure sort of off the field. And he put a plan together, and he attacked it, and here we are. And so, yes, we have a lot of talent, but I've been more impressed with how he's really focused on the culture of the team and the leadership of the team. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to have the talent, but it's another thing to have all the intangibles clicking at a high level. And so whether it's analytics around 2-minute warning, he and I had a conversation about that just this morning, whether it's Chip calling plays and letting him be the CEO of the program. He has done a masterful job, I think, of just putting the infrastructure in the right places. That then, hopefully, that's where the scoreboard takes care of itself. Because you did all these other things correctly, and your culture's at a high level. Look, Mike and I, back to where we came from, I've seen it when the culture's not clicking at a high level. And you have all the talent in the world. It doesn't work. And so here, that's what we have to constantly work on, is the culture, the leadership, yes, the talent. So I've been really impressed with the off-season approach of Coach Day, and now we get to play, and now we get to see it hopefully all come together. And that's what I'll be focused on as we lead into this new era.
Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you played fullback in college. Is that correct?
He did.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I did.
Fullback is a dying position in football, right? Have you spoken to Ryan Day when you talked to him this morning and demanded that he brings back the once great prominence of the fullback position?
Well, it's not a dying position; it's a dead position.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Does anyone have a fullback?
There's Kyle Juszczyk from the Niners, right? The Ravens,
okay.
I think, have one. There's a few teams, not
There's
many.
A few. Okay.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the pros. In college, it's definitely a dying breed. I played in an I formation offense for a coach that played at Nebraska, and he was a tough-minded O-lineman, and that's what we ran, and it taught me toughness. I got a few head scars from it, but so I brought it up to Coach Day, and he said, you need to talk to Chip, because Chip's the play caller.
Okay.
So I went to Chip, and I said, hey, Chip. And so, if you saw the spring game, we came out in the two-back set as sort of an honor back to the Woody Hayes area. So that's probably the closest that we're going to get, as we might see Travion and Quinshawn in the backfield at the same time. But I don't think they're going to bring out a 250-pound bruising fullback like we used to have back in the day.
I want a Mike Allstott.
But I'll keep working on it.
Please.
I'll keep working on it.
I appreciate it. I mean, I look like I could have been a fullback. I, of course, was not good enough, but I have that kind of body.
Come on.
What's that?
You're a pulling guard. You're not a fullback.
I'm only 5'8". I can't be a point guard.
Pulling besides a hamstring.
I'm not. Yeah, it's a fair point. Mike, you got a story. Wrap us up with this story. Go ahead. Or a question you wanted to ask. Sorry.
Well, I had a question and a story real quick.
Yeah.
So Ross is a fullback in Emporia State. His son's a freshman. I believe is Peyton a freshman, Ross?
He's a freshman.
That makes me feel so old because I met Ross when he was a freshman at A&M, or A&M Consolidated. But being a father of a D1 football player, Ross, how has that kind of changed how you look at the whole process now of recruiting, NIL, different level, obviously, at Tarleton State than Ohio State. But that whole process, how's it changed being a parent of a D1 football player himself?
No, it was an awesome experience. Look, our son, Peyton, he wasn't recruited at a super high level. We took enough visits. We went to enough camps, to try to get him noticed. Tarleton State is a great fit for him. They actually play. I'm able to go to his game this weekend. They have a Week 0 game against McNeese State on ESPN2. At 3:30 Eastern time on Saturday.
Nice.
So he's in the mix. He's in the mix as a punt returner. The receiving room, he's a slot receiver. The receiving room is pretty deep, so I'm not sure how much PT he'll get on offense, but hopefully in special teams he'll have a chance. And the recruiting process was awesome because I was just a dad. I had my filter on, like I knew kind of what to look for and things like that and what to ask, but I made sure that everybody that we talked to, they knew that I was dad first, and they need to be recruiting him for his playing ability and his academics and those kind of things. But it was really neat to have the in-home visits, and a couple times they were like, "Hey, do you guys need to talk about NIL?" And I'm like, "You know what? I think we're okay, but tell me about it. Like, what is your game plan at Tarleton?" So just because everybody was dealing with it, and so it was just kind of fascinating to go through, but we're super proud of Peyton, and he's loving it, and he's a gym rat, and I think one day he wants to coach, and he's in a great spot there with the Tarleton State Texans.
Well, tell Peyton I said what's up when you go down there. And the last thing, we'll wrap it up, but when I got hired for this job, before anyone else was hired, it was just me and EP Steve. I actually tested Ross before I left Texas and said, "Hey, could we meet? I love the way you kind of put together a staff at A&M in the upper management there. I'm going to be part of these decisions, hiring a staff here. Can I pick your brain for 5 minutes on kind of what you look for in hires and all that?" So we sat down, we got coffee at Harvest. And Ross, we are now 2.5 years into this process. Your advice has worked out terrifically because
I appreciate
we won an Emmy, we're killing it. So you have a very small part, and my part's only a tiny bit bigger, but in the success of UCSS and all the hires we made. So I just want to say thank you for that. I don't think I ever had a chance to actually thank you. So thank you for meeting me that day. It was a pleasure, and it's worked out.
Absolutely.
I think the best for everybody.
Hey, look, everything's built on relationships, and anytime we can help, whether it's, people always say, "Oh, the media and athletics were sort of at odds." No, it's all the same ecosystem, and if we can help out friends and colleagues, then happy to do it. So I'm glad it paid off, and so hopefully your investors are happy too. Whoever's investing in this, hopefully they're happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Ross,
that's awesome, guys.
Ross, if you could come up here and talk to all the coaches and executives in Cleveland on my behalf.
We could use that.
I could use you.
Okay. All right.
He's very convincing, trust me.
We wish you the best of luck and great success at Ohio State. Obviously, as you say, everybody here is rooting for all the teams. Football gets most of the headlines, followed by basketball. But, you want all the teams to do well, certainly. I take an interest in baseball. I root for northern schools in baseball because it's usually all the southern and western schools that dominate baseball. So
I got a 14-year-old hitting at 300 feet. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
About 4 years, we'll be in touch.
You're going to love our new coach, Justin Harris. He's an Ohio guy. You're going to love him. So, absolutely. Thanks for promoting baseball.
You got it. Thanks, Ross. We appreciate it, man.
All right, guys.
Go Bucks.
Take care. See you down the road.
Yep.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Awesome.
He was very impressive.
Awesome guy.
Yeah.
Very
Mike's been raving about him since they hired him.
I liked, he didn't, obviously he's not going to say that Ryan Day's on the hot seat, of course.
No, he's not going to say that.
I kind of liked the way he answered the question.
He told you all the background.
Yeah, he didn't just say, "Oh, everything's fine, it's fine." He said, "Yeah, we discussed it. What's your plan?" I like that. He wasn't afraid. He didn't shy away from what you asked him. I was impressed.
No, he didn't, and I respect that. But he didn't answer the question either.
Well, he did. He just nobody's ever going to say it. He's
win or go home.
Nobody would ever say you have to win or you're going to get fired. He's never going to say that. That's impossible. Nobody would ever answer that question.
You wouldn't be honest with your employers.
with your employers?
Yeah, like if you was Ross and he said, what do I need to do to keep my job? You wouldn't be like,
yeah, I'd be honest, sure, but he's not going to tell us on TV
Would you,
that if Ryan Day has a bad season, he's getting fired.
I have no filter. I'm the wrong one to ask.
Mike,
but Jason,
Mike,
even
would you say that?
If you were the AD at Ohio State, you're not coming on a show and admitting that you're going to fire. I'm not saying he's going to fire.
If I'm the AD at Ohio State, I'm going to get fired within 12 hours. So that's never going to happen.
You're just going to keep it real. You're just going to say
that guy's. You can tell.
He's a pro.
He seems like a good hire for the job. And there's a lot of pressure being the AD at Ohio State.
That's a big job, man.
I mean, that's one of the most pressure-filled AD jobs in the country.
36 varsity sports, right?
Every last one of them.
36.
Every last one of them.
And I'll tell you guys, he's a genuinely good guy, too.
Yeah, seems like a good guy.
Genuinely good guy. He actually, when he got hired at A&M, I was hired a little before he was. He sat down with me for his first one-on-one when he got there. I had set it up. And it was kind of like my first break. The first thing I really did. And ever since then, we always had a really good working relationship. Always liked him. His son's a hell of a football player, too.
What position he playing?
Wide receiver.
Yeah.
Okay.
The high school his son went to, so he said he's not going to get a lot of playing time at Tarleton as a freshman. When he was a freshman at A&M Consolidated, their 3 receivers went to A&M, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech.
Oh, wow.
So
he was around good talent.
And
that was very nice what he did sitting down with you to give you advice. That was really good. That was really good.
Really
cool. That was cool.
We got 2 super chats to get to today to wrap up today's show. In overtime, Bull, you mentioned earlier, we're going to pick our 2 fantasy football members. We had about 35 submissions.
We're
going to pick our 2 favorite.
Looking forward to that.
Completely anonymously. And then we are going to announce that in overtime. So if you're a member, make sure you tune in. And 2 lucky members will be part of the UCSS Fantasy Football League in 2024. First super chat, and this one's mean. He paid for it, so I'm going to read it. It says, lay off the Twinkies, Ty.
Oh.
I'm getting big.
I'm sorry. He pays, I got to read it.
I'm getting big.
Lay off the Twinkies.
I'm still the same weight, so
with you and me on the set, he's gonna say that to Tyvus?
What?
I'm still.
That's not nice.
I've been consistently the same weight for about 2 months.
That is not nice. And
I don't
not
like
appropriate.
Tyvus is in great shape.
No, first of all, I don't even eat Twinkies. I work out every.
I don't eat Twinkies.
I don't even eat Twinkies.
I did when I was.
The sick part is I work out almost every other day.
Twinkies are gross.
I work out every other day.
Me too. You never know it.
Well.
Go ahead.
The other super chat is related to Jason's dishwasher story.
Oh.
It comes from Michael Ribovich. Fun fact from an hour-long YouTube study on dishwashers. Don't ask why I watched. The dishwasher pods suck. Use either liquid or powder and make sure you fill the pre-wash side with soap too. Works so much better.
I use liquid.
I do use pods.
I use pods.
But it's let's get technical for 3. It's the float pump underneath the dishwasher.
So there's nothing to do with
So it's filling, like the water tray at the bottom is filling up with water and shutting down the dishwasher. So I have to pull out the float pump. So I ordered a new float pump. I don't know if that's what's bad or if there's my kids, when they load the dishes, they just take everything full of food.
Yeah.
Like they throw a steak in the dishwasher. They just throw whatever's on the plate, just goes in the dishwasher. I'm like, guys, you have to scrape and rinse the plates. You can't, the food goes somewhere.
But they don't listen? You got to have consequences when they don't listen.
Well, my kids are phenomenal. They really are great kids.
Go old school.
But they are terrible at loading the dishwasher. So hopefully this new float pump fixes it.
You got to put that belt on the stove so they can see it.
I'm not beating my children over dishes.
That's what they used to do. I used to put the belt on the stove. It was like a warning. Make sure, they ready. They ain't messing around.
What are you, Adrian Peterson? Oh, my gosh.
Oh, shoot.
All right. Funny. So, anyway.
I will, maybe the plastic from the pods.
Yeah, I use liquid.
Totally,
I mean, it works. It's all right.
We always use pods.
Mike, who's your fix-it guy who you put me in touch with, now his son does work around my house.
He's done stuff for me, too.
The only thing he couldn't do was when I had an issue with my dishwasher.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything else, either he or his son fix it up.
Yeah, I may have to call it.
In fact, I got to call him because I got some a job I want them to do.
I may have to call an actual repairman if this float switch, whatever crap, doesn't fix it.
Oh, by the way, quick story. So, you know how...
You're good.
All right. So I have guys, I'm in the middle of a lot of different home projects. So for the last 2 weeks, These guys have been working, good company, H&M. They do landscaping, they do grass cutting. So we've had the landscaping redone, and we are putting in a brand new fence in my backyard.
Okay.
So today they've been working on the variety of projects for 2 weeks. Today is probably going to be the last day. So I decided I want to treat the guys who have been working at my house because they've been doing such a great job. I was like, all right, I'm going to buy pizza for the guys for lunch. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to go get pizza and bring it to them. And I asked my wife, I said, go ask the guys what kind of pizza they want. And 2 of them wanted a Hawaiian pizza. And I'm like, oh my God.
Can't do it.
I'm going to do it. These guys have been great. They're very nice. They do. They're incredibly detailed.
Where they from?
They take their time. The company's called H&M. They've done a really nice job. Where the guys from?
Yeah.
Their nationality?
Sure.
I mean, I don't know for sure. I think they're from Mexico, but
okay.
Not all of them.
Okay.
Some of the guys, I don't know.
Then that's what they like, probably.
But they asked for like a jalapeno pizza. One guy wanted a cheese. I'm like, whatever. But I was like, oh my God. I said to my wife, I got to order a Hawaiian pizza.
Yeah.
I have to order a Hawaiian pizza.
But that's when.
But I'm going to do it because I take care of the peeps.
When we were having.
We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, sorry. We're out of time.
When we were having our house built, we just bought donuts for the crew. Got extra stuff out of them.
That's good. Good idea.